Hello, hello. I totally lost track of time. It's Friday afternoon here, so I'm a little bit later starting than I'd hoped to be, but hopefully see some people coming on live. When you do come on, please do introduce yourself. It's always nice to say hi, so I know who I've got there. And today is actually day 5, can't quite believe it, in my 5-day Retrain Your Mind challenge. And we've been looking at how to change your perspective, looking at how you think and doing something about what's not working for you right now. So day 1, we looked at how to enjoy your life more of the time. Day 2, we looked at how to always put yourself first and why that's really important. Day 3, we tackled your biggest work fear. Yesterday, I was looking at how your thoughts create your reality and how to create something better if you don't like what you're experiencing at the moment. And today, I'm going to be talking about holding on, how holding on only actually harms you and how you can kind of let go of some of the things that you've been holding on to so that it's not harming you anymore. So, hello to my replay viewers. Always nice if you can invite followers and share out on Twitter. That would be lovely. Thank you. And if you're new to me, just very briefly, my name is Julie Johnson. And you know, when you're trying to run a business and everything's moving and changing so quickly, and you have all these challenges and everything kind of thrown at you all the time, so you feel like you just can't keep up and you're pulled in all these different directions. Well, I help generally micro business owners to cut through that noise so that you can cope with the challenges, the challenges that business and life throw at you, and you can kind of manage that fast paced much better, which means as a result you get clear on what's really important to you, on what's going to be right for you in your business, which means that you then focus on just the things that you want to do, and you can kind of cut out all of the rest of that noise, so life becomes much simpler, and you not only can run your business, but you can actually grow it and live a happy life too, kind of enjoy your life as well, which, you know, is kind of what all I'm about. It's very holistic. There's no point growing a business if you're not enjoying your life as well. So today, let's get on to the topic then, which is holding on only harms you. Now, actually, when I was thinking of this morning, I got a video through which was very synchronous. Is that the word? The synchronicity, anyway, which isn't surprising. It never surprises me because, you know, very often we're presented with things when we most need them. So this video popped up from a friend, copied me into it, I think. And it was basically saying, it was showing this person holding a glass of water and saying, it doesn't really matter how much that weighs, that glass of water or that cup of, I just have my cup here. It doesn't really matter how much that weighs. What matters is how long you hold on to it. That's when it starts to really affect you. So if I'm holding on to this for a few seconds or a minute, then that would generally be fine. If I was holding on to this for an hour, then I would start to get an ache in my arm, possibly in my shoulder, possibly in my hand. If I was holding on to this for a full day or even longer, then what do you think is going to happen? I'm going to be numb, I can tell you, probably stuck, completely paralysed. And that's kind of the way I want you to think about your stresses and worries. Because things that are stressing you and worrying you are like that glass of water. You think about something for a little while and maybe nothing happens. If you think about it for longer, then it starts to affect you. It starts to affect how you feel. If you think about it long term and it's a regular, persistent, negative pattern that's developed, which is around, you know, you're feeling, rather you're saying these things to yourself, you're thinking about them, and it's starting to affect how you feel, it can actually paralyse you. It can actually mean that you don't do the things that you want to do in your business and in your life. So what I want to do, because this is a challenge week, I want to just explore what you're holding on to. So what's in your glass? What's in your glass? May not be water. It's all of your stresses and worries. So if you think about in relation to you as a person and as a business owner, and I'm thinking here about things that you might be ashamed of, things that you might be feeling guilty of, things that you're possibly blaming yourself for. I was going to ask if people wanted to share, but there's not much movement there. So let me just explore some of the things that I know people have said to me and I felt myself, because this is the type of stuff that we do hold on to. And it's really important as a first step to kind of recognise what that is, to identify what those things are, because you can't do anything about it. And you'll know from any of my previous Periscopes, you cannot do anything about these things until you notice them, until you recognise and you become more consciously aware of them. So, what types of things? Well, I know for people who are running a business and are parents, so if you're a working mum, it can very often be feeling guilty about the time that they're not spending with their children, or possibly feeling guilty about when they are spending time with their children, they're still thinking about work. It could be blaming yourself for not making the business work the way you expected, not having as many clients or bringing in as much money. You could be blaming yourself for having some not very nice clients. So what is it for you? I want you to get really specific. And now we need to think about what you can do to put that glass down, to stop holding on. So there are a few things you can do. Now, the first thing is to check your interpretation, because this is about perspective, isn't it? So if you're thinking about something, if you're blaming yourself for something, then you need to examine whether it's actually something that's within your control. It's a bit like the serenity prayer, isn't it? She says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So there may be things that you're holding on to. If you re-examine, if you get very specific and look at it closely and you examine that, it may be that you realise some of that's not within your power to do anything about. Now that in itself may be enough for you to start to dissipate, to start to kind of let that go. If it's not, or if you feel that it is actually within your power to do something about this, then the second step that I would suggest is that you figure out a way to make amends. So for instance, if it was something to do with a client or a family member that you've had an argument with, or something's happened and you're blaming yourself for it, then what can you do? Well, you could pick up the phone, you could write a note. In fact, writing stuff down, even if you're not going to send that information, even if you're not going to send anything off to that person, can work wonders for you. Just the physical act of getting it down on paper, you can shred it, you can burn it, you can do what you like. If you want to have a rant, that's a really good way of doing it without actually ranting at the person. So check whether it's within your control. If it is, second stage would be, what can you do to make amends? And even if, as I say, you don't feel like you can make amends with a person, just do it for yourself. And the third thing is to forgive yourself. So sometimes you need to go through all of these three things. And I know that it can be easier to do if you actually write something down. So I forgive myself for thinking whatever, or I forgive myself for saying whatever, or I forgive myself for doing whatever it is that you've done. So actually writing, another thing that works and has worked for some of my clients is just to imagine on your keyboard that you've got a key that says I forgive me, and just kind of press that. Just press that every now and again. It can work wonders. So that's you putting your glass down. Thank you. What if what's in your glass is not in relation to you, it's in relation to somebody else? So maybe you're blaming somebody else, or you're putting up with things that are to do with other people. Like, I don't know, you've got a poor supplier and you've just kind of not dealt with it. You've got a crappy client. You know the type. People that you just wish you didn't have, who complain a lot or who try to take up so much of your time. They're always asking questions and they're not actually taking responsibility for themselves. So that kind of thing. Are there, and it doesn't have to be business related, it can be personal, but are there people or things that you are blaming or that you're putting up with? And the process you'd go through would actually be exactly the same in order to put down your glass and to kind of let that go, to stop holding on to it. So you'd check your perspective. Now, an interesting one, something that really works for me and my clients on this is if you imagine, so if you've got somebody that you're just struggling to deal with and you're really not happy with this person, but you're holding on to this stuff and not really doing anything about it. One of the ways of changing perspective, which remember was my first step, is actually just to think about that person as an actor on your stage. So if you're doing a play, I mean, I always like to talk about dance shows, but let's just talk about a play. So you're in this play, your life is one long play, and there are players and actors that come in and out of your life on a regular basis. What if that person, or those people, if they're a collection of people, what if they've come there for a reason, that they're in your life and they're in connection with you and or your business for a very specific reason, but you just don't know what that reason is yet? Now that might be a really good way of thinking about it, because what that means is you kind of go, oh, okay, so is there some learning? Is there something I haven't grasped about this? And it may be that actually dealing with this or having this presented to you, this person or this situation, will allow you to go, okay, this is helping me see that I really need to tackle it in whatever kind of way. So the main thing that you need to remember with this is that whether you're holding on to stuff that's about yourself, you're blaming yourself or feeling guilty about things, or whether you're holding on to stuff that's about other people, it's you who's holding on. So you've got your glass or cup of water, it's you who's still holding on. So expecting the other person to get whatever it is that is really annoying you or bugging you or you're blaming them for, but you just holding the glass or the cup, is actually not helpful, because all it does is harms you. And remember, the longer you hold on to that, the heavier that becomes. So my challenge to you, well, first of all, if you've got some value from this, a few hearts just to say that's fine for you, that would be good. And the thing I want you to do is to think about, excellent, good, so it has hit home, is to think about what, even if it's one thing, what one thing are you holding on to at the moment that really is having an effect on you? Even if it's to do with somebody else, it's affecting you. And what will you do about that one thing? So that's me for today. That's the end of the Mind Challenge. I would love some questions that I can answer next week. So I'll be scoping again next week. I've got 1 or 2 topics. So people talked about priorities and boundaries, setting boundaries. So they'll be areas that I can tackle. But if you have any other questions, that'll be fab, because I can answer those questions, or we can have a discussion about that next week. So if, just thinking also, if you like what you hear and this is of interest, then please do check out my website, which is the-successclub.co.uk. And you can download some free ebooks there around growing a successful business and stopping what's holding you back. And I shall see you next week. Fabulous. Bye for now. Have a good weekend.